My dream is to feed every kid a healthy meal every day. To have a salad that came from a local garden, and feed every kid that salad every day.
Wow.
That's my goal.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jared Bass with Mark McCain, and you are listening to Triumph Every Day. And we talk about the journeys that shape the lives of our guests and how it brought them to where they are today. And we have a blast from the past guest, Joseph Schroer. I'll just say it either way. I'll say it both ways. We'll cover both bases. Joe is my old soccer coach, believe it or not.
True.
From way back. When did you start coaching us?
I started coaching you all back in, was it 2000? No, 2002, 1, somewhere in there.
Man.
The early zeros.
The early zeros. Were you still in Miami?
No, I was at UC at the time. I was taking classes, and I know there was one year that I went to France for a year, did some stuff, came back. I think I had you for a year or two more, and then then you all graduated and stuff.
We all grew up.
It's unbelievable.
We all
Went
grew
off
up.
on your great paths,
Yeah.
journeys.
Well, the funny thing is we were a part of that team for I don't know how many years, and just from a personal level, I mean, I think you probably impacted me more as a coach than just about anybody else I had. Just the way you coached, the way you kind of thought about things, and just your training style was always fun to be a part of. Try to keep things interesting, which is something we try and do pretty regularly.
Yeah.
So. But that is not necessarily the reason why you're here today. We're not here to reminisce about soccer. We can. I would like to talk to you about the dynamics of being a goalie in just about any sport, and why and what's wrong with you all mentally.
We like punishment.
I guess, man. We just got finished watching the World Cup, and watching these guys sacrifice themselves over and over again. And that's being a goalie in any sport. It takes a different mental fortitude. I don't know what it is, especially like hockey goalies. Those guys, catchers,
Super athletes.
it's unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Anyway.
So there were a few goalies that really impressed me at the World Cup. The guy from England,
Yep.
Percival, who could just jump out of the stadium, I think.
Yeah.
Courtois was really good. Obviously, he got the glove. But the guy from France, Loris, I really enjoyed watching him. He made some spectacular saves. And for me, the one thing I was most impressed about was the anticipation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that they could anticipate that angle and where the ball was going to be at some point, because there were some shots out there that the offensive player is a one-touch volley, and they're just lining it up.
You get a volley, and it's going to go. It can look like it's going left, and it'll cut right, and it's crazy. We've talked about the flow state before here, and just being able to slow down time.
That's right.
In your mind, and you can watch the direction in which a ball is spinning. I'm sure you can probably talk about this in baseball too, where you can actually see probably the seams of a ball, and know that it might change direction at any moment.
Yeah. Well, there was the one keeper who, in a really, really tough game, he was right in front of the ball, but it dipped to the right, hit off his one arm, and went into the goal, right? Loses the game for the team. So he could kind of judge what was going on with that kick, but also, in the end, couldn't. Right? So
it's obviously always easier to play to change the sport, armchair quarterback, where you're watching everything in replay going, what did you do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but when a 60-mile-an-hour knuckleball comes at you,
it's unreal.
There's some element of luck involved sometimes too. It's just
Yes.
you have to be lucky.
Your PKs.
Sometimes.
I mean, there's only so much you can anticipate.
Right.
The guy on the line is just as equally adept to changing direction as the guy shooting the ball. So those are almost a coin toss where you're just committing fully to one side or committing fully to the other. But I digress. We can go down that road forever. I saw we've kind of communicated back and forth along the way on Facebook, and I saw a page pop up, greenstems.org, and it piqued my interest, and I was kind of looking into it and kind of watching what you were doing, and I feel like it goes hand in hand, at least on the educational and nutritional side of things and what we try and preach. I feel like there's parallels there. I kind of want to address and just see where the idea came from, and kind of where you want everything to go. So maybe just a little background for everybody on what Green Stems is, where the idea came from.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Greenstems.org is a local nonprofit, Southwest Ohio, really. But I get into downtown, Butler County, Warren County, lots of places. And our goal is to promote, really in general, nature education, but we work a lot with school gardens. We work a lot with science teachers who want to get kids outside. Another piece of that is promoting healthy, sustainable lifestyles through nature education, through garden education, all those sorts of things, right? So children today are less outside than they ever have been, right?
That's a mild understatement.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Even my own kids, right? It's summertime, and my kids, the thing they most want to do is be on the iPad, or they want to watch a movie. Gets to be 96 degrees outside, and they don't want to go outside too much.
Right. In their defense, I didn't really want to go outside yesterday.
Yeah,
it's 96,
and it's I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I did see it was one of those memes the other day, and it was like kids these days have all these things, and he was holding a PSP. If you remember those,
yeah.
He's like, bet most kids wouldn't even recognize this. And somebody was like, that thing cost like $300 when it came out. Like, you were spoiled. Like, that was the same. It's the same equivalence.
Right.
Totally true.
So Joe, whenever you say nature education, what maybe exactly are you?
Yeah. So I teach mostly at my university. I teach mostly courses in early childhood education, and so with that, I work with a lot of people who are pre-service early childhood educators, right? So who are going to be working in that pre-K through 3 environment. So we want kids. How do young children learn best? Well, and how do they learn in general? Is they learn through experience, right? They engage in the environment.
Sure.
And so so teachers of young children need to be able to create environments in which children can interact with things, and then that's how they're really going to be learning, right? So ages 3 to 8 is kind of what I'm talking about there. Okay. So nature education is getting teachers to take kids outside, right? Like having planned activities or questions or hikes, whatever it might be, to engage the children in outside activities, to be able to then bring that back inside, and so forth. So there's that kind of exchange. But what
kind of demographic are you looking at as far as 3 to 8? Again, you talk about kids being a little more sedentary. Is it these are just normal kids? Are they under special circumstances, or is it just kind of a wide array?
Typically normal functioning kids, although I do work with special education faculty members as well, and we work on different projects together to create inclusive outdoor educational experiences. I worked at Hamilton High School, for example, just recently. We are in the midst, we just started this past spring, of creating a sensory garden in the middle of the high school. They have these little courtyards. Well, they're not little, they're pretty big courtyards. And so creating a sensory garden is about touch, smell, feel, sight, all these sorts of things. But really the goal is to not only bring science classrooms out there, but to also bring the special education courses out there. So these are students in high school who have very special needs. A lot of times they're in wheelchairs, or they have assistive devices, whatever it might be. But the high school, actually, the ag department built these raised bed gardens that were wheelchair accessible for the kids.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah. So you don't think about it sometimes, and I think kind of what you're talking about there. You don't think about it like a garden. If you plant a garden, how accessible is a garden to someone in a wheelchair, to someone with cerebral palsy, or to those sorts of things. So we actually started to think about this, so sensory gardens are a great avenue to get out there with that sort of idea too.
What how difficult is that working with? Are schools very receptive to this? Because I feel like I remember being in grade school, and it's like the school lunches were, it's like your traveling tacos,
Right.
chicken nugget day, pizza day. Obviously the difficult part of that is they're on a budget. They can't just go out and buy fresh produce every single day. But at the same time, they have a responsibility to provide, meals that meet certain requirements. But sometimes it's probably in your eyes, as requirements are the bar set pretty low.
Right. Well. Yeah, you're kind of opening a little hatch there.
I get.
That's a good one. It's a good one, though. I like this. So part of what Green Stems does too is also pairing the nutrition side of things and working school garden. There's a whole movement, garden to cafeteria and farm to cafeteria. There are multiple movements
Sure.
of that, and actually Cincinnati just this past year hosted the National Farm to Cafeteria Conference.
Oh, cool!
And there were hundreds of people. It was just huge, and it was just a great experience. I was able to go and network and whatnot, but so there are a lot of misconceptions that schools have, right? And most of the time, the cafeteria, the food side of things is just quarantined over here in the district, and it's like, just give us the daily minimum requirements, right? So the state of Ohio and the government, they regulate cafeterias, and they want the cafeteria workers to not only, make everything, prep it, send it out to the kids and so forth. So the easiest way to do that is frozen foods, right? So just pump truck in, Gordon Foods or whatever it is, and just GFS, and all those things have tons of preservatives. There's nothing fresh about them. Who knows what's in half of the walking tacos and the hamburger patties and
delicious, but no.
Yeah, right. The pizzas, I love the pizza.
I think it's a term that I don't think Mark necessarily coined it, but we've used it here before. It's checking the box or filling the box.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
it's checking it versus filling it.
Yeah, and it's like for a lot of people, it's just like
I need food. Check.
Let's just check that box off.
Right.
Rather than let's fill that box with
vegetables and
exactly.
and let's have a dialogue, and let's be open, and let's not operate the school as a business.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
for so and for so many people, you don't know what you don't know. So you're not even necessarily putting someone at fault. It's just the fact that their nutritional relevance or their outdoor education relevance is so very, very small.
Well, think about that for a second. If it's pizza day and kids aren't getting outside and exercising and test scores are low, is there ever a correlation made with those things?
Right.
We just had lunch. I don't understand,
why Jimmy's falling asleep
why
at his
Johnny's
desk.
sleeping over here.
Right, he's in a food coma.
He's,
got no energy.
basically a pre-diabetic kid, or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, to use extreme examples,
Right.
but not everyone's going to be like that. But at the same time, it's how engaged do you expect? Let's just use elementary, kids to be after they eat maybe 2-3 slices of pizza, and don't engage with recess or outdoor, and then they have to come back in, maybe an air-conditioned room or whatnot, and sit. That's the whole
Yeah.
problem we have. With,
We don't
with-
just sitting all day.
You wonder why kids that are 12 years old can't touch their toes. You have them sitting down for 6 hours a day, plus. So anyway, I digress
That's
on
right.
that. But
No, you're totally right on, because it's the production model, it's the business model of education, and by third grade, kids have to be the standards are much higher now, and the tests, the big high stakes tests start in third grade. So how do we get the kids to pass those tests and learn how to read and do all the math and so forth? Well, it's the production model, right? It's an assembly model, and just what you're saying. There's less engagement and more worksheets than ever before.
Because you're basing everything around a test that is telling you whether you're smart or not.
Right. And the whole idea, that testing, I teach assessment, so it's a big deal, right? But the whole idea is that, kids need to be able to learn how to read by a certain age. Is that true? Well, they need to be able to read. You're right, though, about all the food that they consume, and then they sit, and you also have to remember in low income areas, they're also getting breakfast. They're getting prepackaged breakfasts that come in like hot. They look like Hot Pocket breakfasts. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And they can have all that. So they eat breakfast at school, lunch at school. In many cases, they're also eating after school meals before they go home.
And that could be all the food they have for the day.
It could
be.
be.
In some extreme cases.
It could be. So between 9 and 4:30, they're packing in all of this food, which is great. At least they're eating. Right.
Yeah, sure.
I work with schools in downtown Cincinnati. I know that these kids need food, that kind of thing. But also, what kind of food are they getting?
Right.
Is another idea. And
because I think that's I think that's the really interesting and tough part, because again, you have a government role to basically provide for these low income families, or these kids that maybe not getting all the food they need at home, but at the same time they have to do so on a national level, almost maybe even statewide level.
Right.
You have this big blanket approach. Well, if you extrapolate that is kind of impossible to do a farm to cafeteria type situation.
Right, and so that's where it does become super difficult, because the state government wants to, they're going to pay for the food, right? Like this all gets funneled through, they're going to pay for it, so they want to make sure that there's nutritional value to it. So the cafeteria workers, they have to prep this and write down, okay, so I've got this meal today, how much protein's in it, carbohydrates, whatever else, fats and everything else. And so they're regulated on what they can give the kids for that. Now, if you do farm or school garden into your cafeteria, they have to keep track of that. They have to figure out, right? Like your cafeteria worker who makes $9 an hour, who works part-time, who might also do another job on the side as well, raise their own family.
My mom was a cafeteria worker.
Yeah.
It hits home big time.
Yeah.
And they're under a lot of pressure to get all this stuff ready, throughout the day.
Right.
And it's pretty physical work too. You're carrying in those heavy frozen boxes and moving everything around, and
that's right,
opening up giant cans of all the things. But so that would be very difficult to fit that in too.
That's right.
But as we know, and I agree, that's 100% important. I'm not trying to say like you don't need to know your macro nutrients, but we know if you're eating natural and processed food, it's gonna be healthier. Depending, it could be all carbohydrate, or whatever. But no, I totally get that. You need to be able to break that down, and then how realistic is that to fit into that already overworked person?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh yeah, and by the way, make this tomato sauce. Prepare, cut. I mean, that's really the biggest issue that we have in the schools is like you're feeding hundreds of kids in a time crunch, and so we can go harvest tomatoes in the summer, but who's going to can them? Who's going to prep them, can them? That kind of thing, and then prep it ready for tomato sauce in the fall. And
that's a lot of logistics.
Huge.
Yeah,
huge.
It's a lot of logistics and a lot of time. It's funny because it almost comes down to the passion versus the pay. It's like you have to have someone who's passionate about it, because you're probably not going to be able to pay them what they're actually worth, unfortunately.
Right.
Because you talk about that you're in the world of a chef.
Yeah.
You
have to hire a chef.
Yeah.
I've been to several schools, one in Ohio, Granville schools, for example. They have a professional school where they train people to be chefs, and they have a chef on staff, and that is how they get food into the cafeteria.
Wow.
But they have that program, right?
Yeah.
Detroit Public Schools has farms in the urban core. You can look these up, and they spend about $500,000 a year on these farms and trying to bring fresh produce. And I'll tell you, it meets with a little bit of success here and there. They had a squash harvest, for example. They were able to feed every kid in Detroit Public Schools a bowl of squash soup. Just one day, though.
Yeah. So how do you?
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to multiply this out. So that squash harvest is great, but then how do you do that for a whole year of 180 days in a school?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you get in GMOs, and you wonder why all the farming is, grain fed, and yeah, you come down to checking a box, you know, and it's tough. It's a very difficult problem to solve. And I think the word you used earlier was it has to become this movement.
Yes.
It has to become more, you know, when and it's just becomes like, you know, we're very blessed here to have a lot of great community members that are more than just about themselves. They're more than they're. It's a community, you know. So that's what it has to be.
Right.
You know, Cincinnati Public Schools. It can't be them and then everyone else. It has to be like everyone has to understand.
Or even smaller than that, the people that go to Cincinnati Public Schools need to understand that, hey, we probably need all these volunteers, and you know, like we need these people. If again you're going to go down this road, you need that community backing it, understanding this is the road, the path that we're taking.
Right. They need to understand the science behind it. They need to understand the benefits of these locally grown fresh produce and so forth. And also, you know, they're starting to get some research in there, right? Like kids who eat fresh, who have just a salad bar, you know, in the cafeteria. They're more likely to eat produce at home. They're more likely to buy fresh produce from the Kroger or Meijer.
It becomes habitual. You know?
What's funny is the parents who have children that know what we do here. You know, they will partake in their parents eating better.
That's
you
right.
know? Like there's some, again, your kid, you still like to have your Lucky Charms and things like that, but like you'll see, you know, kids wanting, because it's a monkey see, monkey do. If mom and dad are eating, you know, a healthy, well-balanced meal for dinner, they're going to want to do what mom and dad does.
That's right.
That's
right. My 3-year-old eats salad. He loves salad.
Yeah.
My 6-year-old or 7-year-old now, he eats broccoli like no tomorrow. Right? Like I've never met a 3-year-old who eats salad, but because we put salad on the table every night, you know, because I have a small garden, but you know, so because we do that and we model that, I agree with you. It's the modeling that we do. And what are our schools doing? What do they say to kids when they say, "Oh, here, have this that has no taste, frozen, whatever it might be"? You know?
Well, it's that paradigm shift we're talking about. We're going through this book we're reading right now, and it's, you know, the paradigm shift being kids eat cereal as opposed to kids eat salad. Like it's not just. This doesn't have to be the way it is from now until the end of time.
Right.
Like, what are they going to say in 100 years from now? Like, man, can you believe that they used to feed kids, the future of the world, these things?
Yeah.
You know, like, why weren't they eating all the good stuff? And, you know, maybe the parents had to be the ones checking the box and just figuring it out for themselves. So, you know, like you said, you're building almost these habits into these kids, like just throwing something together that has no nutritional value, and then you know, whenever obviously they get out of school, what do you think they're immediately going to go to whenever they get to college? It's
That's
like,
right.
or you know, just out in the world. Yeah.
I can vouch for that.
Well, you know,
microwave mac and cheese.
Yeah. Lots of ramen, lots of easy mac.
Exactly.
You know, and because it's convenient and tastes good. You know. Yeah. So talking about the physical side of things. So you touched on. I mean, what kinds of things are you doing to get these kids in touch with nature?
So I've done several different programs. Right now it's summertime, right? So I am working downtown with some kids at a new Cincinnati park called Ziegler Park, and I've been running an 8-week pollinator camp kind of with them. And so we've been looking at. I was fortunate enough to get hooked up with 3CDC. I had a small grant from the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, and all to create this 8-week program. And, you know, the kids came in, they knew nothing about pollination, knew very little about what pollinators are and the types of flowers and plants.
I don't know much.
So I could tell you. Yeah. So, and this goes along, right? So, like, if you want to have a home garden or whatever, you have to understand, you know, how your plants are going to create fruits for you, right? So, and the whole ecosystem around that. So, pollination is the act of moving. Well, if you don't mind me saying, it's sex ed for plants.
Oh, sure.
So it's the act
Put a
of
little R rating on this podcast.
a little,
huh?
yeah. So it's the act of moving pollen. So from the boy parts of the plant to the girl parts of the plant, and then when the pollen goes into the ovary and the girl parts of the plant, well, it creates a fruit. So a tomato is basically an egg that has seeds on the inside. Every plant wants to pass along its genetics and survive kind of through seeds, right? So in order to create seeds, it sometimes creates a fruit, sometimes it creates just a seed, right? Every plant that you look at has seeds somewhere, somehow. Sometimes plants are perfect flowers, and they have both the boy and the girl parts. And sometimes they just have the boy parts or the girl parts, like cucumbers, for example. They have boy and girl flowers. Tomatoes have both parts together, so the wind or corn, the wind can pollinate these plants. So anyway, the act of pollinators is to, like bees, for example, bees, butterflies, moths, ants, all these animals, is to make pollination happen, right? And so that's my goal, is to teach kids to understand what pollination is, understand the insects involved, understand the challenges that face our bees today, for example. Last week we had a huge bee week, and we understood how honey is made. We understand how to work with bees. Kids came in, they were scared to death of bees, and now they touch bumblebees because they know they're not going to sting them.
Right.
So like
I have a
huge shift in understanding.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
I have horrible allergies.
Yes.
Like allergic to everything since I was born.
Right.
Basically. So recently I was looking up some different things. I discovered I had a cottonwood tree in my backyard, and we just moved in a house and whatnot. And so it like looks like it's snowing 2 weeks out of the year. Jarrett was actually over the one day when it was in season. It's done now. It's fine. However, I was looking up different things to kind of make me more immune, towards certain allergies. And one of the things that was recommended was local honey.
Yeah.
And it's, maybe you can speak to that a little bit if people are listening that might have some allergies.
Yeah. And there are also pollen pills, I think, that you can also take.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So local honey, what the bees do is, the reason why you would want local honey is to kind of help you become immune, right? Like I know some folks who have eaten poison ivy, and what does that do? It helps you not get the rash, the itch, because what that is, it's an allergic reaction, right? So like the whole idea behind local honey then is to eat the pollen, much like you would get a flu vaccine. You actually put flu in your body, and your body builds the immunity toward it. So if you eat local honey, you're getting nectar and pollen from local wildflowers, or even the trees or whatever it might be that blooms, and you're going to get that. And you're going to ingest that, and that helps you become more immune to those allergens that are out there.
You should see Mark tomorrow. There's a giant
it's just going to be stupid.
Honey on everything.
honey on everything. Mark eats steak. That's fine.
That's all right.
Steak.
Yeah, whatever. But I'm always fascinated by that. Sorry, Jarrett. Because obviously modern medicine wasn't around forever. Yeah. And I'm always fascinated by these, almost indigenous tribes and whatnot that uses plant medicine, and that, more in particular, as, obviously I feel like everyone has had a family member that's suffered from cancer, and they want to basically, this chemotherapy and stuff like that. But there is a lot of studies out there that show, like, just by eating a plant-based diet or just using the medicine that the world provides, as opposed to blowing up all of your system basically and ingesting it with all these toxins. So anyway, I don't want to get not necessarily get down that road, but I just want to throw that out there. Like, I'm always fascinated when I hear things like that. Like, people eat poison ivy, and like some people will listen to that and be like, "Whoa, that's crazy! Like, why would they do that?"
Well, I think the bigger picture is that there are some of the larger health issues that can be addressed along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, like a lot of these things that people just think that, well, that's just the way it is. A lot of that stuff can be addressed kind of well before it becomes an issue.
Yes.
Yeah,
I saw a recent study published in the past year out of France that processed foods were the number one leading cause of cancer.
Sure.
The fact that we eat so many processed foods that's actually part of the reason why we're getting
Absolutely.
so much cancer.
Yeah. And the one thing is like to realize that like it's if you have a bag of tater tots, it's not the end of the world. But
Right.
if that is your sole meal every night, then that's when it becomes an issue. And
Right, or 3 to 4 nights a week, or the fast food,
Right.
or whatever it might be. That's where it comes back to. We were talking just briefly before about cooking, right?
Sure.
So part of what we do at Green Stems, what we profess a lot is, not just the school garden and not just getting the kids outside and being active, but learning how to prepare foods that they can do. A lot of the underprivileged kids that I work with in the inner city, their parents aren't even home. They're being taken care of by an older sibling because their mom and dad's working 2 or 3 jobs, whatever it might be. So what are those kids eating? They're eating a bag of chips that's in there, so and maybe a pop from the fridge or whatever it might be.
Oh, and there's a whole new what's not a new term, but your food deserts.
Yeah, food deserts, right.
Where you don't have accessibility to proper nutrition, even if you wanted to. If you go through a program where you learn, like, oh, this is how I cook. There are some places where that's not even an option.
Right. 2 sides to the coin. The Kroger downtown on Vine Street, they'll tell you we don't have fresh produce because the people won't buy it.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the coin, the people say, well, I can go to Kroger on Vine Street, but there's no fresh produce to buy there.
Right.
So cart and
it's a-
horse and those sorts of things, it's a really difficult.
It's a vexing problem.
I can't.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't believe that there's not a Kroger downtown yet. That a proper Kroger downtown, being the headquarters of said Kroger.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a different story.
Oh, we just got canceled.
Yeah. So we have some So there's outdoor education. You're obviously getting kids outside.
Yes.
Is there an active part to it, or is it mostly educational?
Yeah, absolutely. So kids learn by experience, by doing. A lot of the research out of actually the University of Cincinnati, they have an amazing outdoor education center, the Arlet Center there. Just to throw a plug, you can take a look at some of their research and what they're doing. They find that kids who engage in outdoor learning activities, experiential activities, have higher STEM test scores, science proclivities, higher proclivity to engage in science and understand science and math as well, by the way. All these things build our spatial reasoning, spatial environment. So kids outside, they learn by building a dam in a river. They learn by redirecting that stream. They learn by playing with sticks and rocks, right? What does a stick become in the world?
Anything.
Right. Absolutely anything. They learn by building forts and playing tag. Tag is one of the oldest games.
It's amazing.
In Europe, I went to a conference on play once, and there was a whole session just on tag. The research that these folks did on tag and the different words.
They just made a movie about it.
Yeah, there's
I
been a
mean,
movie.
Oh, no way! I didn't see
yeah,
this.
there's five guys who played tag for 30 years.
Oh, no
And
way!
they go to
That's
like
why.
the most extreme length.
Oh, that's why the
looks
sport
good.
of tag is now like.
They have
coming
parkour
out. Yeah,
tag.
that's
Yeah.
what I just saw. That's what I just saw.
It's pretty insane.
My 7-year-old loves parkour, and I wonder if he's gotten into that.
Yeah, it's that in particular is pretty amazing to watch. You see very athletic people doing
so smooth.
I know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's-
But
Anyway.
there's what you're doing is what we're trying to redirect later in life. I guess is.
Yes.
So what you're doing, trying to get people to understand nutrition, trying to get them more active, trying to get them off their butt and not sitting, trying to get them to understand how to just to do simple cooking is what we're trying to do as adults.
That's right.
So
Because we forget it.
I know the benefit is
We
you're
get
doing it.
comfortable
You're
or
doing it
whatnot.
when it's easy to teach kids.
Yeah.
We're doing it later on when it's harder to make these changes because again, well, that's just the way it is. Well, that's not true.
Right.
You know, the nice thing in our situation is we have, generally speaking, as adults, you have the resources to make the changes easier than you do as a child.
Right.
You know, you have the ability to, well, if I live downtown, I can just drive up in Newport. You can't do that as an 8-year-old.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so,
Right.
but the parallels are definitely there. You know, we're trying to get people to just understand movement, B, understand that, you know, we it's still drawing the board over there, a little triangle. You know, the triage of, you know, we have your nutrition, you have overall fitness, and then you have mobility. Just as adults, you need mobility way more than you do as kids, because you're just made of rubber when you're 8 years old. You know, it's like I fell and you bounce, you get back up, and you're
Yeah,
fine.
you should see my kids wrestle.
Yeah. So, but you know, I think the hardest thing for us is the nutrition piece, is to get people to understand that there's a direct correlation to how you look and feel, how you perform in here, probably how you perform at your job, you know, how you sleep.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I literally have not had caffeine this week, and I'm starting to take a little bit, like, you know, but I'm falling asleep like that at night.
You haven't
You
exploded.
know? I haven't exploded yet, you know, or imploded.
Spontaneous combustion.
Yeah.
No.
But the funny thing is like I knew that that's what would happen, but to really experience, like to really not have caffeine for a whole week, I'm like, I get into bed and I read like 10 pages and I was out. You know?
Yeah. As a teacher, former middle school, high school teacher, and now college prof and whatnot. And when I get into schools, I see they bring teachers now a cart of donuts and coffee, and they bring it around 2 to 3 times a day.
Whoa.
It's unbelievable. And I tell you something, I really believe, you know, the habits of teachers, they get up very early, they work very hard, and they stay late, and they do things. So, you know, like, what do they want to do when they get home? Well, 5 o'clock, they want to get home. They want to eat right away because they're hungry, because they're starving, because they've had all that sugar, all that caffeine, they've worked super hard, all that kind of stuff, right? What's our habit, right? What you're talking about, like with nutrition and trying to build that habit, and we've talked a little bit about convenience and stuff like that, is you want to get home and you want to eat because you've had sugar and caffeine all day, right? So like one of the things that I've adopted in my life a little bit, well, 2 things. Number one, I switched from tea to coffee a lot. Like I'll take weeks off of coffee and I switch to tea and do that a lot. But number 2 is I try to eat later. I try to eat around 7 o'clock. We try to slow down. Like, yeah, I'll have a snack when I have some cheese when I get home maybe, but I'm gonna cook. I'm gonna run around with kids and cook. I'm gonna tell my kids to go outside and I'm gonna cook. I'm gonna barbecue. I'm gonna take the time. I'm gonna take 45 minutes to prepare something. Either I got it from my garden or you know, or we had something in the fridge, whatever it is. But like learning how to cook, even if it's a 3-ingredient meal, a 5-ingredient meal, whatever it is, but learning how to cook, prepare food is like
there's
so
no
important.
you know, it's not a surprise that there's so many cooking shows and food shows and all these things out there, because there's something communal about it, you know, especially, you know, what do you look for first when you buy a house? What's their kitchen look like? I mean, 100% of the time, you know, kitchen and bathrooms. Like, it's never like, well, let's go look at the spare bedroom. No, it's always, let's go directly to the kitchen. Wow, they took a lot of good care of this. I can see myself and my family there. You know, that is such a communal space about it. And again, it's just one of those things that I love the fact that it's like, I'm going to take the time, because I think we all get wrapped up in our own business thinking like, if I don't do this right now, the
I'm
world
gonna
is
starve.
Yeah, or the world is going to come crashing down around me. Like I got to eat real quick because I still got to grade these papers. I got to get these projects done.
Emails.
I've been, you know, I have a bad habit of staying up till 9:30, 10 o'clock on my computer at the kitchen table after I eat. And it's like I've started to just put it away. If I don't get every single thing I was supposed to get done that week, I probably have at least decreased my stress level by twofold by not having to like think I have to get this done.
Right.
So reality is the sun's going to set tomorrow.
That's right.
It's not going to stop just because you didn't get this done.
That's right.
And I think taking the time to cook, it increases the togetherness of your family.
That's right. The conversations you have over a bag of McDonald's are not the same conversations you have over
Right.
that
Right.
three-course meal or
Right.
two-course meal.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I agree.
Finish your point.
No, I mean it's basically that the times that myself and my fiance and future wife and like how many days? 19 days,
Oh,
something like that.
what?
19? I can't
You
count.
should
That's
know.
not right.
I don't know
Something
what's
like that. But the times that we'll make those meals together, it's. Let's put it this way: she's not pulling out her phone to take a picture of the Arby's that we picked up.
That's
Right.
right. Right. She's
Very
going to
good
take a
point.
picture of the color.
Right,
like-
of the meal that we just made together.
That's right.
One
That's
thing
right.
I want to jump in, that you guys were talking about waiting, to eat and stuff like that. One thing I've definitely learned over the years, I used to be a very regimented, like I need to eat every 2 to 3 hours, because
Yeah.
I've always been what's considered a hard gainer, and I've kind of just accepted my body type, and it's like, I'm going to eat 6 meals a day to gain 5 pounds, and just, it sucks.
And I've heard that about athletes too. Like some athletes I know to gain weight, right?
It's very difficult for certain people. So
Mark is one of those guys that will eat a whole pizza and be like, well, 8-pack.
Yeah.
That's just who he is.
Right.
But one thing I've learned, over the years, is sometimes it's better just not to eat, if it's going to be crap. So like those donut carts you were just talking about, it's almost like, hey, you know what? I'm good. As opposed to I'm gonna have this little bit of sugar, this, let's be honest, crack,
Yeah. I mean,
to get me going. And then, check the box or whatever you want to say, like, oh, yeah, I had lunch. It was a donut. It's like, no, intermittent fasting is a real thing. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
And us in America, look, we are in the 1%. If you live in this country, by and large, you're in the 1%.
you can get food anytime you want it.
You don't know hunger. There's people out there that experience hunger. You don't need to eat every 2 to 3 hours per se. Obviously, if you're, working towards the goal of fitness and so on and so forth, ideally you want to, have your meals throughout the day, so on and so forth. But there's been definitely times where maybe we go on a trip or whatnot, and I'm not as like, Jared, we need to go to Chipotle right now. I need food. It's just I can wait.
Yep.
I can wait like to eat as
Yep.
opposed to, I'm gonna pick donuts. Really, I mean, nutrition. The word that I think that is synonymous with it is just discipline.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you're working in education. Sounds like for quite some time, and it's just like anything else. I mean, if you want to be a better student, you just got to be disciplined.
Yeah.
If you have to.
Those
have
people
that,
generally aren't that much smarter than you. They just studied more than you did. It's the same thing. It's like those guys that, or those girls that you see that maybe you want that body, and it's like they're probably just more disciplined than you are.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching, now, because Jared and I go back pretty far,
Yeah.
I remember Jared as a pretty skinny kid, pretty...
let's hear some of these
pretty
stories.
bony.
Yeah.
you might have seen some pictures here and there, but
I had a bowl cut probably at one point.
Yeah.
No.
I've seen some pretty rad style.
Yeah.
Some pretty rad style.
Maybe a puka shell necklace at one point.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow.
But I
Bring that
remember,
back.
even just a few years back, I think when you started really lifting, and really doing, clean and jerks and so forth. I remember you posting, and I was so impressed. You would post like on Sunday or Monday, you'd post your meals, and I saw color and protein and this and that. And you also took those days, those free days, right? I don't know if you want to talk more about it, but I just remember seeing this like
Some cheat days.
the cheat days, right? These pictures of these giant,
We were just
plates.
talking
of
about that today.
fantasticness.
Yeah.
And there's that, it's the 80-20 rule, if you will. It's not so much anymore. I think it was like, hey, let's just have these blowout meals, but now it's more like, I'm gonna have like your little cheat item. You know, like I'm just gonna have this one thing that tastes really good instead of just this like 3,900 calorie, you know, smorgasbord that is gonna put me under for 6 hours. But
The Joey Chestnut.
yeah, exactly. So, but you have to have some release. Like that's definitely not what we're saying. Is like you have to be this regimented, you know, cook every single meal. Like enjoy yourself from time to time. But the reality is the preparedness and the healthy cooking and the whole foods meal, not the store Whole Foods, but the Whole Foods meal that you're having should be the predominant factor in your life.
Right.
You know, and it's funny because it can be as simple as that. If you really want to change your body composition, if you really want to change how you eat, feel, sleep, work, it's as simple as that. Stop, have more of those and less of the cheat meals. If you want to go the opposite direction, have more cheat meals. You know, it can be as simple as that if you want it to be.
So it's you know, the simple answer to a lot of the questions and problems is diet and nutrition, but it's as easy as that, but it's really hard. You know, it's as hard as that. It's as hard as, you know, finding some discipline, learning how to cook, taking these steps. And I think some people just get so overwhelmed by looking at that, they never start.
Right. Yeah.
So I love that you're helping people start at an early age. You know.
So
Sweet try.
transitioning past these kind of 3 and 8 year olds, where have you seen like these kids that you have at this age? Do you see personal results later on of like, wow, these kids have definitely taken a different path? I'm not sure how long you've been doing this to see that far, but
Yeah. You know what I tend to see, you know, just through a school year, what we tend to see is we see the kids who are super scared of a broccoli or super reluctant to try kohlrabi or Swiss chard or some of the, you know, maybe an exotic, or maybe just as simple as lettuce, you know, like a lot of kids are just like, I don't like it. Well, when's the last time you had it? I don't know. Never.
I've never had
Yeah.
it.
So, right. So like, so what we see
We
in
hear
a
that from
transition,
adults, by the way. It's fine.
it's hard, right?
Yeah.
What we see is a transition within a school year. We see the transition within the school year where when we introduce something new at the beginning of the year, kids are less likely to try it by the middle of the year. They're grabbing it out of your hands. I walked into one classroom that I had worked with at the beginning of the year. I walked in the middle of the year and I had, you know, some Swiss chard with me. And these kids, they tackled me, you know, like, what do you have? And they're just ripping it apart because they wanted to try it. They knew they had liked what they had had before.
Well, and you can extrapolate that down the road of just being able and wanting to try new experiences.
That's right.
You know, that is even if the nutritional stuff doesn't stick, having the idea that I can try new things and it's not going to hurt me that's a huge skill to learn.
Right. For just example, my daughter, you know, like for her, it's as simple as, I didn't like it with this salad dressing, so I'm going to try this salad dressing. Now she only has her salad with this dressing, but she'll eat that salad every time.
Yeah.
You know, so like, you know, sometimes it's as simple as just trying a different type of recipe, try a different spice, try a different thing, you know.
And not pushing the wayside. Well, I didn't like that, so I'm never going to have it again.
That's right. That's right. Like some people like pineapple on pizza. I love it, but you know,
you might start a war with that one.
I know, right? right. But you know, it's a thing. Like, well, maybe I didn't like it with this type of pizza, but you know, you try it with pineapple and like barbecue chicken, and all of a sudden it becomes that amazing, you know, sweet and savory type of thing. You know,
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that pineapple one.
I don't want to mess with that too, man.
That's all right. So where do you want to see this whole program go? If you know, if everything worked out in your favor, is there like a plan for it, or are we just kind of moving along as we get grants and these kids kind of move through the program?
You know what I want to do? My dream is to feed every kid a healthy meal every day. To have a salad that came from a local garden. and feed every kid that salad every day.
Wow.
That's my goal in Southwest Ohio. I know it's possible. I know people will say, well, what about winter? Well, there are new techniques in hydroponic gardening. There are new techniques in greenhouse gardening. There are hoop houses. There are different types of vegetables that we haven't thought of.
Salad doesn't have to be just leafy greens.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
That's right. There are lots and lots of different vegetables and fruits that we can grow. Root vegetables, for example, they take a long time, but they're definitely doable. And that's my goal. If we just had a salad bar that was fresh, local, in every school, and we tried new things every once in a while, had tastings and so forth, I think kids would get the message. And I would think that they, and then we do all the nature ed, right? And then we're walking and we're hiking and we're doing things outside and we're creating experiences for kids. Green Acres is it's in Indian Hill, it's a local farm. We're getting kids to Green Acres to be able to understand where food comes from and all these sorts of things. If we start to do that, then maybe I think children will make a different choice when they get to the grocery later on in life. And maybe as well, they'll be the ones who invent the new technique for gardening, the new farming technique, the new way to grow produce.
Snowball effect.
Yeah, because that's where it's leading to. An agricultural educator from Ohio State can come out and make $80,000 this year. That's no joke, because we don't have enough people who know how to grow food, and we have to feed this entire country, and we feed a lot of other places in the world too, right? So I think that that's the revolution. I think that's Jamie Oliver did that food revolution a few years back, and it hit in some places, but it also maybe sparked some things in others. And
I agree.
Anyway,
pretty awesome.
What how would people find you as far as like people in our community with kids and whatnot?
Yeah. So I love to connect with schools. I love to consult. I have not made a single penny off of this endeavor. I put everything back into the programming that I do, and STEM education does take money, and it takes funding. It's like art, right? Art and STEM. All of that takes a lot of money, and that's why art typically gets cut. STEM, there's a major push for it, and there's a lot of money for it, but how you do it's different. But if any schools, if anyone in the community who listens to this or sees the podcast, www.greenstems.org. On Facebook is where I post a lot of my stuff. You can see some of the activities I've done. I love to work with schools because I've worked with schools, and I've had a lot of experience working with people who have like successful school gardens. I know how some of the pitfalls that we can fall into, some of the reasons why school gardens don't succeed, and so forth. So I'm very, very happy to meet with people and just to provide advice or push in the right direction as far as programming, or even change the district, change the school environment. Let's invest in our kids' nutrition and their future, maybe a STEM career like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it. I love it. So we always like to end with just a very simple question, and it's what is your definition of success?
For me personally, or for the world, or whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, whatever.
Just your definition.
Success. Success for me is happiness, right? It's that life balance of happiness. It's not being too much in one direction, too much in another. It's finding that happy medium. And I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that life is always finding a middle road. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think we tend to strive and push in different directions, but it's when those different directions do meld together and we've pushed the right way in different directions that we find our success in life. And it can take a minute. definitely, for sure.
It's a journey.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Love that answer. That was good, man.
Anytime.
Well, thank you for coming out today, driving down from Oxford.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
I've
It's been
listened
too
to these
long.
podcasts before and watched
cool.
a couple
Yeah.
few, so they're
Thank you.
inspiring. So I really enjoy
Thank you.
enjoy the work you do. Keep
Thanks,
it up.
man. Appreciate it. Thank you all for listening to Triumph Every Day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and everywhere your favorite podcasts are found. You can find us at triumphstrength.net, on Instagram at Triumph Strength, and Facebook at facebook.com/TriumphStrength. See you guys next week. Thanks again.
Thanks.